In an expedition to the depths of the ocean, what explorers uncovered within the haunting wreckage of the Titanic sent shockwaves through the entire world. Undoubtedly, you are going to be captivated as we unveil the astounding discoveries that have forever altered our understanding of this tragic tale. Join us on a captivating journey through time as we delve into the untold stories of the Titanic, revealing the secrets, triumphs, and tragedies that lie beneath the surface of one of history's most iconic ships. With that said, let's start. Titanic's ghostly encounter. A submersible submarine vessel was venturing into the depths of the Titanic wreck site when an astonishing discovery left the world in awe. Amongst the remnants of the ill-fated ship, a photograph emerged, claiming to capture the image of one of the deceased passengers. According to a paranormal expert, the apparition depicted an elderly woman who perished in the tragic sinking. Her body was never found, but her spirit seemed to have returned to the scene of her demise. The reasons behind her haunting presence remain a mystery, prompting speculation that she may be seeking closure or attempting to convey a message. Is this a genuine encounter with a ghost, or a peculiar anomaly captured through the lens? Icy Nemesis. A team of researchers embarked on a remarkable journey to trace the path of the iceberg that brought about the demise of the Titanic in 1912. Grant Bigg of Sheffield University and his team utilized a computer model, combining historical data from 1912 with contemporary information on ocean currents and wind patterns. Through this amalgamation, they reconstructed the atmospheric conditions on that fateful night. Their findings converged on a specific location. The iceberg emerged from around Casimiot on the southwest coast of Greenland. This colossal ice mass measured approximately 400 feet in length and stood a towering 100 feet above the ocean's surface, weighing an estimated 3,300 pounds or 1.5 metric tons. Although the iceberg's origin story may lack the dramatic flair of the Titanic's tale, it possesses all the elements of a captivating blockbuster. Titanic's heroic engineers. Amidst the harrowing circumstances that unfolded on the Titanic that fateful night, there is no doubt that everyone on board displayed incredible bravery. However, a particular group of individuals took their courage to unparalleled heights: the engineers. Despite perishing alongside their fellow passengers, these engineers exhibited extraordinary bravery during the ill-fated voyage of April 1912. Even as panic spread and the crew hurried towards lifeboats, the engineers steadfastly adhered to their duties, showcasing unwavering valor until the very last moment. Their unwavering commitment to keeping the ship's power running for as long as possible provided others with the best chance of survival. Sacrificing their own lives to ensure the safety of hundreds, their acts of heroism deserve eternal recognition. Without these selfless individuals, the distress signals may have gone unheard, leaving the world perpetually puzzled about the tragedy that befell the Titanic. Titanic's iconic funnels. Titanic was an absolute icon of its time. I mean, seriously, it had to have 4 funnels, even though only 3 of them actually served a purpose. But hey, you can't just cruise around with only 3 funnels and expect people to be impressed. No, the Titanic had to go all out with 4 funnels, even if one of them was just for show. They turned that 4th funnel into a ventilation shaft for the kitchen, while the first 3 actually connected to the furnaces producing all that smoke. Some even speculate that the 4th funnel was meant to make the ship look more powerful and awe-inspiring. But hey, I'll let you be the judge of that. Wealth and tragedy aboard the Titanic. Now, we all know there were thousands of people on board the Titanic, and thanks to the famous film, we got a glimpse into their diverse backgrounds. In fact, many of them left behind remarkable legacies. Let me introduce you to one such individual, John Jacob Astor IV. This guy was a big shot, a businessman and hotelier who made a fortune in New York City's real estate. Born into wealth, he multiplied his riches through smart investments and even co-built the legendary Waldorf Astoria Hotel with his cousin William. When his wife became pregnant while traveling abroad, Astor booked passage on the Titanic so she could give birth in America. But tragedy struck when the ship hit that infamous iceberg. Astor couldn't join his wife in a lifeboat, and it's said that he simply stood there alone as the ship went down. Now, here's where it gets heartbreaking. When they discovered Astor's body, they found a gold pocket watch among his belongings. His son Vincent later claimed and wore that watch for the rest of his life. From budget folly to record-breaking success. Let's shift gears and talk about the Titanic movie. Can you believe that back in 1997, everyone thought it was going to be a massive failure? Yeah, the folks in Hollywood were making snarky comments left and right, mocking the sheer audacity of making such an expensive film. I mean, back then, a $200 million movie was unthinkable. But guess what? The joke was on them. James Cameron's Titanic ended up raking in a whopping $2.2 billion worldwide and breaking numerous records. It became the most expensive film ever made at the time, surpassing the actual cost of building the original ship between 1910 and 1912, which was a mere $7.5 million. If Cameron had been in charge of designing the real Titanic, I bet it would have been a staggering $750 million, and he might have even blown it up himself. Breaking myths with technology. For 73 years, people believed that the Titanic sank in one piece. I mean, that's what the eyewitness accounts and even the highest-ranking survivor, Second Officer Charles Lightoller, indicated. But in 1982, oceanographer Robert Ballard set out to find the wreckage and asked the U.S. Navy for funding. Armed with a robotic submersible, he explored the Titanic's resting place, and lo and behold, he discovered that the ship had in fact broken into two. Ballard's find laid to rest the debate once and for all, and proved that technology can debunk long-held beliefs. Isidore and Ida Strauss's final act. Now, let me introduce you to a couple whose story you'll definitely recognize, unless, of course, you despise department stores. Meet Isidore and Ida Strauss, the owners of Macy's department store. When they boarded the Titanic, they were looking forward to a luxurious journey home to New York. But on that fateful night of April 14th, 1912, everything changed when the ship struck an iceberg. Hundreds of passengers perished in the panic, and Isidore and Ida were directed to lifeboat number 8. However, Isidore refused to board, while there were young men still waiting for a chance, and in turn, Ida couldn't bear to leave her husband behind. So she wrapped her fur coat around their maid, Alan, and told her to take it, saying she had no use for it anymore. Then, with one last exchange, Ida was swept away by a wave and lost at sea. Isidore's body was later recovered and buried in New York, while Ida's was never found. But their remarkable act of selflessness and kindness toward their maid, Alan, became a timeless story that reminds us how even in the face of tragedy, humanity can find a glimmer of peace. Titanic's lifeboat dilemma. Let's talk about lifeboats, shall we? In modern times, we all understand the importance of lifeboats on cruise liners. Tragic accidents and movies like the Poseidon Adventure have made it crystal clear that safety precautions are necessary when venturing out on the open water. It's advice the designers of the Titanic should have taken to heart. While the ship's lifeboats played a crucial role in saving many passengers, they fell far short of what was needed. The Titanic had 20 lifeboats, which could accommodate 1,178 people. However, there were 2,223 people on board that night, and the ship had a maximum capacity of 3,547. So, why the shortage of lifeboats? Well, the designers prioritized aesthetics over safety. They thought too many lifeboats would ruin the ship's look, so they settled for just 20. Yes, you heard that right. The Titanic could have carried over 60 lifeboats, but they decided to skimp on them. While the ship technically met the safety regulations of its time, it's undoubtedly disheartening to know that everyone could have survived if they had included those extra lifeboats. Yet another tragic example of style triumphing over substance, Masabumi Hosono's suffering beyond the Titanic. In the grand scheme of the Titanic's catastrophic tragedy, it's nearly impossible to honor every single person on board. However, there are some individuals who deserve long overdue respect, especially when they did nothing wrong. Meet Masabumi Hosono, a Japanese civil servant and the only Japanese passenger on the Titanic's maiden voyage. You'd think surviving such a disaster would be a cause for celebration, but sadly, that wasn't the case for Hosono. Rescued in Lifeboat 13, he became the target of public criticism from the Japanese press and government. They believed he hadn't done enough to save his fellow passengers. Hosono was fired, condemned in the national press, ridiculed in textbooks as a moral coward, and even labeled unethical by a university professor. Can you imagine enduring all that after surviving one of the greatest disasters of the 20th century? Tragically, Hosono passed away in 1939, broken from the trauma he had endured. But even in death, his name was dragged through the mud again when a Japanese liner sank in 1954. It's a devastating and heartbreaking story. No one should be treated that way, especially not someone who had already suffered so much. The heroic architect of the unsinkable Titanic. It's incredibly easy to scrutinize the Titanic and point out all the mistakes that led to its tragic fate. But back then, it was genuinely believed to be unsinkable. However, not everyone turned a blind eye to the potential dangers, especially those involved in its construction. One such individual was Thomas Andrews, Jr., the naval architect responsible for the Titanic's plans. He held a pivotal role on that ill-fated night, fully aware of the grim reality following the devastating collision. After inspecting the damaged section of the ship, Andrews concluded that it was a mathematical certainty the vessel would sink. So what did he do? He sprang into action. Despite knowing that there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone, Andrews urged reluctant individuals to board them, hoping to fill them to capacity with as many people as possible. Tragically, Andrews perished in the sinking, and his body was never recovered. However, it would be unjust to blame or accuse Andrews of contributing to the Titanic's demise. In those extraordinary circumstances, he rose to the occasion and did everything within his power to save as many lives as he could. Truly, Andrews was nothing short of a hero. The ecological crisis. Honestly, it feels like our world is constantly grappling with numerous crises simultaneously. However, one of the most urgent and far-reaching challenges we face is the ecological crisis, which astonishingly even affects the Titanic. Yes, you heard it right. Environmental concerns have reached a sunken ship that has been resting beneath the ocean's depths for over a century. Welcome to Earth, the land of calamities. Scientists predict that within the next 10 years, the remains of the Titanic will vanish entirely, swallowed by the abyss. The culprit? Bacteria in the ocean. In 2010, microbiologists stumbled upon proteobacteria on rusticles recovered from the wreckage. It may sound exciting to discover something new, but this time, their findings were anything but cheerful. Based on the latest estimates, by 2030, the ship will have deteriorated to such an extent that there might not even be a trace of the Titanic left. This news is undeniably disheartening, since the wreckage represents a tangible piece of history, a poignant reminder of one of the most tragic disasters our planet has witnessed. To imagine it vanishing into nothingness is truly dispiriting. However, let's face it, we're dealing with a plethora of crises these days. A billionaire's bold and dubious endeavor rest assured there won't be a sequel to the 1997 film Titanic. Although I do have a sneaking suspicion that James Cameron may have once pitched a ludicrous idea involving the ship rising from the depths to hunt swimmers, like a maritime version of Jaws. But fear not, that notion is purely fictional, allegedly. Instead, let's focus on a real-life enthusiast by the name of Cliff Palmer, who happens to be one of Australia's wealthiest individuals. He commissioned a Chinese state-owned company to construct a 21st century replica of the ill-fated ship, aptly named Titanic II. Now, you don't accumulate billions by being excessively imaginative, do you? This new vessel aims to replicate the original Titanic while integrating modern technology. Imagine 21st century navigation systems and cutting-edge safety measures designed to avoid the catastrophic accidents that unfolded over a century ago. Because, really, when has recreating a doomed ship ever gone wrong? Well, that's a rhetorical question. Nonetheless, if this doesn't demonstrate that some people have an abundance of wealth to spare, then I don't know what does. Some folks would gladly use that money for groceries or essential needs. But hey, if this gentleman wants to dedicate his life to a replica of a shipwreck, I suppose it's his prerogative. Dogs aboard the Titanic. Did you know that 12 dogs accompanied their owners on that ill-fated voyage? What happened to them, you ask? How did they end up on board? Let's dive into this little-known tidbit. Among the passengers, there were 12 precious pooches aboard the Titanic, each accompanied by their owners on their journey to America. 9 of these dogs were kept in a kennel on the ship, where they received daily walks and meals. As for the other 3, belonging to first-class passengers, they were fortunate enough to stay in their owners' rooms. Unfortunately, only 3 of the 12 dogs survived the calamity. Considering the ship's inevitable plunge into the freezing depths of the ocean, it's unsurprising that none of the dogs could endure such harsh conditions. Presumably, the 3 surviving dogs were fortunate enough to be taken on the lifeboats alongside their owners. Poor little pups, caught up in such a tragic event. Unfound souls. The tragedy of the Titanic remains etched in our collective memory, but there's something even more haunting than the known death toll, the countless souls who were never found. To this day, their fate remains a mystery, leaving us to hope they found solace in a better place. Over 1,500 passengers and crew perished when the RMS Titanic sank a century ago. Shockingly, only about 340 bodies were recovered, with just 337 of them belonging to the 1,500-plus lives lost. That means roughly 1 in every 5 passengers disappeared without a trace. As the ship sank, some met their fate by going down with it, while others were scattered across vast winds and currents, forever lost to the depths of the ocean. Some even claim that remnants of the ill-fated voyage can still be seen strewn across the ocean floor. Contemplating the possibility that the bodies of those who lost their lives are still resting at the bottom of the sea is undeniably heart-wrenching. These individuals deserved the chance to live a full life, but sadly, the universe had other plans. The Titanic's odorous voyage? For those who value cleanliness and hygiene, count your blessings that you weren't aboard the Titanic. Not just because of the catastrophic sinking, but also due to the rather unpleasant aroma that likely permeated the ship. While first-class passengers had the luxury of small private bathrooms in their cabins, it was a different story for the 700 souls in third class. With a meager 2 bathrooms to share among them, and only 2 tubs available, the situation quickly became less than ideal. A single bathtub was designated for the 200 women on board, while the remaining tub was shared among over 450 men. The whereabouts of the children's bathing routine remains unknown, and it's possible they didn't have the opportunity to bathe at all. In that era, bathing was not a frequent occurrence for most adults, who often relied on a simple sponge to freshen up. While passengers may have tried their best to have a thorough cleanse before embarking on the ship, staying clean throughout the journey proved to be quite challenging. First-class passengers, despite having the luxury of private tubs, often went a week between baths, as was customary during that time. Consequently, they endured a week-long stew of their own perspiration and odor. One can only imagine the discomfort of being confined to a space with someone who hadn't washed in such a long time. Frankly, the thought alone would tempt anyone to throw themselves overboard. Hershey's Sweet Escape. Hershey's, the iconic candy corporation, is now a beloved name worldwide. However, you might be surprised to learn about the connection between Hershey's chocolate and the ill-fated Titanic. It turns out that the man behind the famous brand, Mr. Milton Hershey himself, was initially set to board the Titanic on that fateful journey. However, fate intervened in a remarkable way. Mr. Hershey and his wife Kitty had spent several years in Europe, primarily seeking relief for Kitty's health issues. In early 1912, circumstances compelled Milton Hershey to return to his business in Hershey, Pennsylvania, earlier than planned. Consequently, he made the last-minute decision to cancel his voyage on the Titanic, ultimately saving his own life. Instead, he switched to sailing on the German liner, America, while Kitty remained in Europe. On April 6th, Mr. Hershey arrived in New York City by ship, safely returning to his town on April 7th. While already a fortunate man, Milton Hershey's decision not to board the Titanic proved to be a stroke of extraordinary luck. We're talking about a man who built one of the world's most successful candy brands, and this serendipitous event further underscores his remarkable fortune. It seems clear that the universe had a special affection for Mr. Hershey, bestowing him with an abundance of good fortune. From survivor to a star. We all know the captivating story of the Titanic disaster, which has served as a rich source of inspiration for various art forms, novels, movies, plays, and more. Countless tales have been spun about that fateful night. But how many of them actually involve individuals who experienced the tragedy firsthand? Enter Dorothy Gibson, an exceptional American artist, model, singer, and film actress. While she achieved many remarkable feats throughout her career, she is perhaps best known as a survivor of the Titanic sinking. Oh, and did I mention that she starred in the very first motion picture based on the disaster? Saved from the Titanic hit theaters merely a month after the RMS Titanic's tragic demise, setting a new record for how swiftly a tragedy could be exploited for storytelling purposes. Film historians regard the loss of Saved from the Titanic as one of the greatest setbacks of the silent era. Unfortunately, the only known prints of this legendary motion picture were destroyed in a devastating fire at Eclair Studios in New Jersey back in 1914. Today, many people would gladly part with a significant sum of money for a chance to witness this iconic film. But alas, they must hold on to their wallets unless someone invents the time machine. Sadly, it seems highly unlikely that we'll ever have the privilege of seeing this silent masterpiece. The Titanic's elusive wreckage. The quest to find the legendary wreckage of the RMS Titanic was a tantalizing endeavor that captivated scientists and explorers alike. The ship's notoriety as one of the most famous vessels in history only intensified the desire to locate its remains. Such was the fervor surrounding this expedition that a scientist even proposed taking his pet monkey along for the mission. However, it would be another 70 years before the wreckage was finally discovered, and the aid of a primate was unnecessary. Deep-sea explorer Robert Ballard harbored an ambitious dream: to be the one who would uncover the Titanic's resting place. When the U.S. Navy commissioned Ballard to locate and photograph two sunken submarines in the Atlantic, he recognized an opportunity. Ballard understood that the undersea currents carry the debris of a sunken vessel, akin to the trail left behind by a comet. Could this phenomenon assist him in locating the elusive Titanic? In 1985, Ballard embarked on a mission to photograph the submarines once more. However, this time he was granted the freedom to search for the trail of debris left by the Titanic. With only 12 days to work with, Ballard faced astronomical odds. The trail was estimated to be over a mile long, in an oceanic area 5 times the size of New York. Against all adversity, he accomplished the seemingly impossible. Ballard found the Titanic, allowing the world to finally grasp the scale of this magnificent ship. The rest, as they say, is history. Melodies of bravery. Among the stories of heroism on board the Titanic, the musicians have garnered unparalleled attention. Their extraordinary courage that fateful evening remains etched in the public's collective memory, surpassing all expectations. The ship's orchestra comprised 2 subgroups: a quintet that played during tea time, after-dinner concerts, and Sunday services, and a violin, cello, and piano trio that performed at the restaurant and cafe. Little did they know that this calamity would unite them in harmony. As the Titanic descended into the depths of the ocean, the band members remained steadfast on the deck, their music echoing through the chaos. They played on, aiming to calm the anxious passengers as lifeboats were launched. Many survivors would later recount that the musicians continued their melodies until the very end. It is said that their final composition was "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Tragically, all of the musicians aboard the RMS Titanic perished in the sinking, their heroic acts forever etched in history. In a moment of panic, they employed their art to bring solace, hoping that their music could alleviate the mounting anxiety among the passengers. Whether their efforts succeeded remains unknown, but their bravery in the face of impending doom shines brightly, an indelible testament to the power of music and the human spirit. The Titanic's untold story, size, missed opportunities, and the cruel irony. The Titanic, a name that conjures visions of majesty, grace, and boundless ambition. The allure of this legendary vessel captivated hearts even before it embarked on its ill-fated maiden voyage. The Titanic's claim to fame lay not only in its extraordinary size, but in the way it symbolized human triumph over nature. And yet, amidst the grandeur and splendor, tragedy awaited, emphasizing a cruel irony that lingers to this day. Let's dive into the staggering statistics that encapsulate the Titanic's colossal presence. Measuring an astonishing 882 feet and 9 inches in length, and spanning 92 feet in width, it reigned as the pinnacle of human achievement. But it was not just its size that enchanted the world. It was the embodiment of ambition, progress, and human potential. However, hidden within this tale of magnificence lies a devastating truth. The Titanic carried a total of 20 lifeboats, a commendable provision for emergencies. Yet, the bitter irony lies in the fact that the ship's design allowed for over 60 lifeboats to be accommodated, a staggering 1,178 seats in total. Tragically, 472 of these seats remained unused, rendering the grandeur of the vessel meaningless in the face of disaster. In hindsight, the missed opportunities are painfully evident. If all 64 lifeboats had been deployed, there would have been ample space to save each and every passenger aboard. The sheer scale of the tragedy becomes all the more poignant when contemplating the unimaginable possibility of a different outcome. The lesson resonates deeply. Size and grandeur are hollow without the wisdom to utilize resources effectively and prepare for unforeseen circumstances. And that's a wrap for now. If you found this video fascinating, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Join our community and stay tuned for more captivating content. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep exploring the extraordinary world we live in.